All right, well, welcome. Thank you for coming. So, it's tough teaching these online courses because I'll tell you now, I love my MC students. You guys are awesome. And I think really something's missing when I don't really know who you are. We don't get the opportunity to establish those relationships in structured remote. That's why I teach structured remote like we do face-to-face. So I'm glad you're here. So we're going to be talking about online sandboxes. Has anybody ever heard of an online sandbox or used it in any way? Yeah, okay, great. So which online sandboxes have you used?
Oh gosh, I forget which one, but I just know that TryHackMe has a couple of them.
Okay. So we're going to be doing, and it's not this is not what we call a sandbox, like a traditional sandbox, but this is what we're going to be talking about. The most commonly used sandbox today on Sandbox is called VirusTotal. Has anybody heard of VirusTotal? Yeah. So VirusTotal is really, really feature rich, and I used to use it a lot when I was in industry. I would get calls from customers on suspicious files. And they would say, Dave, should I open this file? Okay, and you know what? I really liked when they did that because what's worse, them opening the file and then actually getting malware, okay? So VirusTotal was a tool that we would use to help determine whether a file was safe or not. And I'll tell you now, VirusTotal is not gonna answer all your questions, okay? It's not gonna completely tell you if it's safe. And I was talking to a student about that this morning, and I'm gonna mention that too. But this is an example of VirusTotal where I actually uploaded a file, and you know what it detected? Ransomware. What do you think? What do you think would have happened if that customer had opened that file?
Completely burnt their PC.
It would have been a very bad day. How about we're not just talking PC, we're talking about the network, right? Because ransomware today infects everything on the network, right? So I wanted to start off with this slide so you could see the VirusTotal website and you could see what it looks like in the detections. Basically, you take the file, you upload it, it actually will scan it against a large number of what we call antivirus engines and tell you, hey, this is potentially malicious. Now, you'll notice that a lot of these antivirus engines, they have different names for the malware. One of the reasons they have different names for malware is because they don't consult anyone when they name their malware, right? So you'll commonly see a different name. But one thing you'll see, if you ever see the same name, you know what that means? They're using the same antivirus engine, okay? So I've said that before, that certain antivirus companies, I don't know if you know this, they don't develop their own detection technology. They actually license it from another company, okay? So if you ever wonder why some antivirus technology is cheaper than others, that's probably why, that they're actually using a technology that they're licensing from someone else. They're not developing from scratch. There's nothing wrong with that model, but as soon as you know that. So these online sandboxes, we also call them multi-scanner services. And these are isolated environments. So if you know what a sandbox is, it's an isolated environment. And they're most commonly used by cybersecurity professionals. And why? Because we're the only ones that really understand how to analyze the output, okay? We could use it to determine if a file contains malware or not, okay? We could also use it for malicious links. So when I say malicious links, what does that mean to you? What's a malicious link? Has anybody ever gotten a link in an email? Yeah. Good, what's that?
Oh, I was just answering your...
Oh, that you got a malicious link?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what does a malicious link typically do?
Isn't it supposed to force you to click on it so it can affect your network or your PC?
Right. So a malicious link is something typically you don't want to click on, okay? But I'll tell you now, given the number of malicious links that are sent in email today, a lot of people are clicking on them, right? Because the bad guys, if something's working for them, they're going to continue to do it. So what you can download in a malicious link can vary, okay? Typically, it's going to be some kind of malware, because when you really look at cybersecurity, it's not like in the movies, right? You guys have taken cybersecurity courses, right? Is there somebody in a dark room with a hoodie on and doing stuff real time? No, it's really not, right? Typically, a lot of hacking is done via scripts, So, you'll write this very sophisticated script, and then you'll launch it. And then you'll come back later and see what the results were. And then maybe you'll start, maybe develop another script. Okay, this is why we have scripting in this program. That's why we do Python scripting. So you can actually, if you get a link that you are suspect, you can actually put it up into one of these online sandboxes, and it'll analyze the files it's trying to download to tell you if it's downloading files, to tell you if it's malicious. So to confirm, don't click on that link. Now the good thing is, you as trained cybersecurity professionals, you know not to click on those links, right? So the question is, if we know not to click on those links, how do we use these tools? Well, guess what? We got to tell our customers, we've got to tell our users what's happening with what they're getting. Because what'll happen for us, when I was in industry, I would get things forwarded to me. Dave, I got this. What do you think about this? So I could very easily take that link, put it in a site like VirusTotal, and it'll tell me, I can confirm to them, yeah, please don't click on any of those things, because it's going to try to download malware. And then you could tell the whole company too. Because typically if one person in an organization is getting one kind of email, there's going to be more people that are getting that kind of email. Okay. So when you look at these services, they vary. VirusTotal that we're going to be looking on is free. But however, there's a paid version. Okay. So take out your credit cards, $10,000 a year for the paid version. Okay. $10,000 a year sounds like a lot to you guys, right? For most companies, it's a drop in the bucket. 10,000, no problem. Okay. Because that's what companies do. They understand that to really protect themselves, that they need the products with more sophistication, with more features. But I'll tell you now, VirusTotal, from what you're going to see, is actually for free version is pretty sophisticated. VirusTotal is also used what we call threat intelligence. So if you get the paid version, you get lots more. But for our purposes, just to try to determine if something has malware, the free version is just fine. Some of them will actually do detection based on signature and some behavior. VirusTotal will actually look behavior. In other words, it'll run the program in its own sandbox. Okay, VirusTotal has its own sandbox, Windows 10 sandbox, Windows 7 sandbox, and it'll analyze the behavior, and I'll show you what that looks like. Different input and output formats. So in other words, you can input an HTML file, you can input a PDF file, you can upload an executable, and also how it's output. It can be output in a CSV file, it can be output in a web browser. Some of them can run on a desktop. There are desktop versions for some. Most of them are cloud-based. When you look at the really good products, they're going to be cloud-based because they're like the most updated version of anything. It's easy for them to update. You'll always get the updated version. VirtualBox is actually a cloud version. If it's a desktop version, they'll support different operating systems, always Windows. Some of them, like I said, will do URL analysis, which is malicious links, and some of them only do file analysis, like a PDF, like executable. And this is kind of important. Some will share the hashes and some don't share the hashes. What we saw early when these sandboxes were developed, did you know that there were antivirus authors that would upload their malware to the sandbox to see if it would be detected by antivirus? And if too many antivirus detected it, guess what they would do? What would you think they would do? Or why would they do that? They would rewrite their malware. Because the goal of the antivirus author is to what? To circumvent your antivirus, right? So they would actually use these airline sandboxes, say, oh, it's being detected by Symantec and Sophos, whatever. I gotta go rewrite my malware. And then they would upload it again until it didn't have a lot of malware detections. And then they would release it, right? Because they want the biggest bang for the buck. Well, some sites now then they started sharing this stuff, okay? And and that's the deal that you'll see with that some of these antivirus engines have with VirusTotal is that if they get the antivirus engine for free VirusTotal, but VirusTotal wants them to give them copies of the hashes, potential malware, so that they know about them, right? So they started developing some of these services. One of them was called No Distribute, that was intentionally run by bad guys, where you could test your malware and it wouldn't share with anybody. Okay, so typically we want the sharing piece. Now, everybody knows National Security Agency, right? National Security Agency, they're just down the street. They defend our country against enemies. They have basically their mission is encryption cryptography related, but they're also do a lot with respect to cybersecurity. And you know what they used to do? They used to keep malware classified. And you know what they started doing? They started burning, that's the term we use in cyber, they started burning the malware of other countries by uploading it to VirusTotal. Because what they were saying is, so say they knew about the some certain kind of malware that's being used by North Korean threat actors, right? And these North Korean threat actors, and any threat actor, if you see them doing stuff over and over again, there's a reason, right? Why would a threat actor do the same thing over and over again? What's happening is that they're doing the same thing over and over again.
It's working.
Who said that? It's working. Yeah, right? You heard the term, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So you'll see that certain threat actors, they'll use the same kind of malware over and over again. And so NSA, they would keep this malware classified, and so they would use it as an agency for intelligence purposes and to protect maybe certain entities. but they would keep the malware classified. But then they decided, you know what, it comes to a point where we need to combat them, and they would basically take the malware and they would upload it to VirusTotal. And when you upload it to VirusTotal, you're not just sharing it at one site, you're sharing it with all the antivirus manufacturers that are on VirusTotal at that time, okay? So there have been many instances, and there's just a couple articles in this example here, they actually uploaded 11 malware samples that were related to North Korea. So that North Korea they would no longer be effective against their targets because the antivirus manufacturers would basically develop signatures against those. Okay, and I thought this was really interesting. It's the same concept that they're uploading to VirusTotal because some malware is still classified. See, he says unclassified malware. So there's classified malware that the National Security Agency would detect that they would consider still to be classified. So they would upload, and I would think that, you know, whether something would be classified would depend on the kind of the effect and, you know, the nature of the malware, you know, who it's a target, whatever, for example. But in this case here, it'll take that unclassified malware, it'll actually upload it up to VirusTotal, and so now everybody knows about it. Now the North Koreans, they're probably the most active nation state when it comes to hacking today. You guys know that, right? North Koreans are dangerous. They're the ones that are basically ripping off, okay, all these cryptocurrency exchanges, okay? They're making in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year in cryptocurrency theft, okay? And they do it via malware. There was a famous case several years ago where they attacked the poor little country of Bangladesh and almost stole $1 billion. $1 billion for Bangladesh, okay? And you know how they got detected? Because it was someone in Germany, in the German central bank, there was a typo. Someone in Germany saw a typo in a document, and basically the attack didn't work. However, they still got away with something like 600 million. Some of that was gotten back, but that's what the Swift malware was about. So what NSA did was they took that malware so it couldn't be used by the North Koreans again, because Bangladesh is a poor country. But I mean, you know, do you think the North Koreans, they were like, oh, let's not attack Bangladesh, they're a poor country, they really need that $1 billion. Why are they attacking Bangladesh? What would be the obvious reason?
They can't suicide.
They can't, well, they can't fight back, but they probably don't have good defenses. If you look at the story of this, guys, they were protecting their network, their central bank, with consumer grade hardware, like Linksys and Netgear, okay? They had it was like they had the lowest level of security. So of course, there's a saying that we have in cybersecurity, you go after the low hanging fruit. Anybody heard that term? You can use that in business in many ways. Bangladesh was low hanging fruit. It was an easy target, and they almost got away with $1 billion, okay? But hopefully that malware can't be used against anyone, okay? I wanted to put this case in that when you upload malware, a lot of these sites will actually register who uploaded it. So if you look at this story for this famous banking children called Carbonac, okay? So the source code was found on VirusTotal, but look, it says, now cybersecurity researchers from FireEye, famous cybersecurity company in this area, revealed that they found Carbonac source code, builders, and some previously unseen plugins in 2 RAR archives that were uploaded on the VirusTotal malware scanning engine 2 years ago from a Russian IP address, okay? Why were they uploading it? They're testing it, okay? But the thing is that this is a proof that threat actors will upload stuff to see how the antivirus engines react, you know, with respect to detection, so they can determine whether they can release it into the wild. So in this case here, it was detected and they were able to trace it back to an IP address in Russia. Does it mean that was really Russia? No, because what do bad guys use to hide where they're coming from all the time? They'll do VPNs. They'll do a VPN. So maybe the VPN was from Russia. It doesn't necessarily mean that the threat actor was Russian. Okay, could have been somewhere else. Anybody know Brian Krebs? Nobody knows Brian? Please register for his, he's got a mailing he does every once in a while. He's a former New York, Washington Post reporter who focuses on cybersecurity. He outs cyber criminals. You know, the ones that the US government can't find, he outs them by basically doing lots of research and basically finding when they use like old names in old sites years ago. So one of the ways that we're catching threat actors today, and the term is called operational security, is because they didn't have good operational security before cyber was a problem. So if you ever heard of like the darknet site, Silk Road, if you've heard of Alphabet, Darknet site, you know how they were found? They were found through Google searches because of poor operational security on what Ross Ulbricht and Alexandra Kazis in the beginning when they started their Darknet sites, that somebody was able to find, someone in law enforcement was to find their real name in a posting that they later deleted, but guess what? That somebody else didn't delete. Okay, so we call that operational security. So notice here, it said here that they're talking about it again here for SolarWinds, right? That was a famous hack that happened a couple years ago, that they actually found that somebody uploaded the malware for SolarWinds onto VirusTotal. Once again, the bad guy, what he was doing, he was testing to see what the detection rates would be in his malware, okay? I thought this was interesting. So these guys from China, APT41, they actually compromised a lot of networks through Trojanized antivirus. That was their thing. They were distributing Trojanized antivirus, and this was really successful for a long time. And I had put here, is it time to start scanning your antivirus? The antivirus program was called Anvasoft. I don't know if anybody heard of that, but it was actually malicious antivirus. So people were actually installing AV, thinking they were protecting themselves, and guess what? They were infecting themselves. Okay. So VirusTotal is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to do a demo. I have some malware I'm going to upload. When I teach this topic at GW, I give my students malware. They get remote access children. I give them ransomware, and I'm going to show, to give them detections. And where do I get this stuff from? Well, there are websites you can get malware from, right? Just register. Hopefully you get accepted. They'll give you malware. They don't accept everybody because they don't want to give malware to hackers. But also, I get a lot of malware in my mailbox. I intentionally, my old corporate mailbox that I still, use, I intentionally don't put a lot of filter on it because I want to see what's coming in. I want to see the latest phishing attacks. I want to see the latest attachments. So I actually, this morning, downloaded some stuff and to upload to see what VirusTotal would say about them, and it's going to be something really interesting that I didn't expect. So we're going to be talking about VirusTotal, and I'm going to say, talking about some of this till we do the demo. But there's a lot of these online sandboxes that are out there, not just VirusTotal, although VirusTotal is the most famous. This guy, Lenny Zeltzer, he actually has a website that has a lot of sites that you can use for this kind of work here. By the way, if you want to copy the presentation, just email me. I'll send it to you. Not classified. But you got to be careful, be careful what you upload onto these sites. Anything that's sensitive, you're probably not going to upload onto VirusTotal. Make sense? So in other words, social security numbers, you never know who's going to be on the other side. So really that's what this site is saying about here. Be careful what you upload, okay? And so I'm going to, also what's really interesting, this is another article by Krebs, but be careful, this service here, another Russian service here, we're going to be busting on them, a la web from Russia. They were actually had a really neat service where you could upload your malware and these guys would make it better. And they were outed by Brian Krebs. By the way, Brian Krebs, he's famous. He lives in Arlington, Virginia. He is constantly being swatted. He's been successfully swatted, but you know guys what swatting is, right? They say, yeah, there's somebody that's holding his wife with a gun and the SWAT comes in and knocks the door down, right, and arrests everybody. He's been swatted several times. He's been a big, by the way, somebody tried to frame him and sent him cocaine. So he got mailed cocaine by Russian cyber criminals because he outs them and they want to get him in trouble. So he has a relationship with the Arlington Police Department. They know who he is now. And that there's going to, people are going to try to swat me. People are going to send me cocaine. That's not my cocaine. But I just want to let you know. But he outed them. And actually, they responded on their website. A few words about Brian Krebs. They usually say really nasty things about him. But definitely get on his mailing list. VirusTotal is so important that you actually see it integrated into tools. So my NWIT 230 students, I don't know if you've looked ahead at some of this stuff, but we're going to be talking about these tools by sysinternals. Has anybody heard of the sysinternals tools? Yeah, sysinternals tools. So there are several sysinternals tools, and I give an example here, one called auto runs. And actually, I detected that one of my computers had malware when I was developing the auto runs lab for my students. So how did I get malware? Well, I ran auto runs as part of the lab, and then I saw that certain of these files basically have these entries here, okay? Because tools like auto runs, they will automatically detect to see if anything you run that has malware. Automatically, it'll just upload it. And you know what happened? Well, I've got kids who play games, okay? Do I need to finish the sentence? So my kids, they use one of my first of all, they used to use, when they use my laptop, I have a couple laptops, but when they use this laptop, I'm assuming, of course they're gonna do schoolwork, right? Oh, they're not gonna be playing games. Well, they actually downloaded a game that had malware, okay? But, you know, so, and I was happy with it. It wasn't like a production laptop I used all the time, and I got to include that in my lab, so I was happy, but then I had to rebuild it, you know, get rid of the malware. But just to show you how important these tools are, or VirusTotal is that it's actually integrated into tools. So my NWIT 230 students, we actually have several labs with several sysinternals tools, Process Monitor, Process Explorer, Sysmon, and some others, where you actually get to use these tools. These are actually tools that we use in industry. Since you know it, you must be working in IT, right? Oh, so how do you know about sysinternals?
Took your 230 for last
So you know, you already went through these labs?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, but that's how important it is. So let's do this. Let's go up to VirusTotal and show you what this is all about. And by the way, anything that I have here, you can have a copy of. If you want the malware, I'll give you a copy of that too. Remember, it's okay for you to have malware, right? Because look, these are malware. See malware samples, Dark Comet, Nanocore Rat, Ninja Rat Cryptor. Okay, why is it okay for that to be there?
As long as you don't execute.
Yeah, as long as I don't execute it, right? Actually, in this case here, I've zipped them as extra safety because I would have to unzip them and then click on the file to execute the malware. See what I mean? So it's okay for me to have this in this format here on this computer. So what I'm gonna do is and by some of the files that I downloaded, this bill here, PDF, this one here was an HTML file that I got that was malicious, and then this other PDF here. These were actually ones that were sent to me in email. So let's show you how VirusTotal works. I'm gonna go to VirusTotal, and this is what the interface looks like. It's virustotal.com. You can upload either a file, okay? Remember I said you can enter malicious URLs? You can if you click on this URL tab, you can click on URL and you'll enter the URL there. See, search or scan a URL. So when you enter this, it'll detect if that URL is gonna try to download anything malicious onto your computer. But also there's a search function. There are certain instances when you don't want to upload the file. Say it has confidential information in it. So VirusTotal works on hashes. So you can actually hash the file on your desktop and then insert the hash here, okay? And then when you send it to VirusTotal, it'll check that hash and see if it's already been analyzed. Okay, so you would do that if you don't want to upload that file for some reason. So you can, and you can also do by IP address or domain, address, www. something. But those are your options. So what I'm going to do to show you, so I'm going to do a file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do choose file, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to select files that I've already used, that I know are malicious. So this is gonna be really fast, and so I'm gonna put, let me do NJRAT, which is remote access Trojan. And I don't know if you saw it real quick, but it said was checking hash. So I'm not surprised by this because this is an older malicious file, but you'll see here in detection, red is not good. So these antivirus engines detected that this file has this malware. But what I find really interesting, this is an old piece of famous malware, okay? Because if I have a copy of it, it must be a famous malware. These guys didn't detect anything. What's that all about? Would you be concerned if you're running that antivirus and it didn't detect this malware? Yeah, so that's a good tool to actually determine the effectiveness of your antivirus, okay? So, but when we click on here, and I don't know what's going on here, look, Palo Alto, that surprises me. I'd have to do further research on that. But it detected, and it named, each one of them named it. Notice that most of them have Trojan on there. But it'll tell you what it thinks it has according to its name. If you go into details, notice it'll give you more information, right? You learned about hashes in your courses. It's gonna give you the MD5 hash, SHA-1 hash, STOP256. This is in case you wanna use those hashes as what we call indicators of compromise. Have you talked about that in your course, IOCs? Yeah. Typically, how do you know whether your network has been compromised already, right? Typically, there are solutions, these files called IOCs that you would import into devices, and that would actually look at files. I used to have clients that would know, like for example, I'll give you an example. When I was teaching the GW ones, another professor asked someone to download a piece of malware. It got detected. The network, they detected that. How would they detect something like that? Well, typically it's done via hashes, like they'll have hashes of known malware, they're running an engine, so you can add these hashes to your, your IOCs, if you need to, so. Notice it says when this malware was first submitted to VirusTotal, so it's kind of an older malware from 2019. Some other names that has been uploaded as, notice is, you know what? This is me, okay? I'm pretty sure that's me. Because that's how I named my malware. And you can actually get a lot more information. We're going to see not as much information this one. I'm going to give you upload one that shows a lot more information. There's not much going on here, but let me go and upload a different one. Let me upload one of the ones that I got this morning. Let me do this one, HTML. I'm going to do HTML, right? Because isn't that an unusual file to get as an attachment in email? I got that as an attachment. HTML. It's like, well, I gotta definitely check this out. So notice that it detected that this is related to phishing. If you look at these findings here, see it says phishing here. This here, Google says it detected something. It doesn't say what it is. But these guys here, a lot of them didn't detect it. So what do you think? Is this safe or not safe? I don't know. What do you think? Is it safe or not safe?
Not safe.
Huh?
Not safe.
Not safe. Yeah, I mean, just because you don't get a lot of detections there doesn't mean it's not safe, right? I was talking actually to Hugo earlier today that if the file has 0-day malware, there aren't going to be any detections, right? So you could be opening something and getting infected because there were no detections. So just be mindful of that if you get 0-day malware that these virus engines don't know about, you can still get infected. VirusTotal is just a tool to help you to make a decision. Make sense? So they're not perfect, okay? So one thing, let's go to the details for this one here. And we still have our hashes, the submission dates, okay? Okay, this one's not so interesting. Some of the PDF ones you'll see a little more interesting. You'll see that it'll actually say what domains this HTML reaches out to. So it analyzed this file and it says, you know, if you run this file, it's going to go out and talk to these domains. AADCEN.MSFAET.net, Ajax, Google, AP. You see this here? It's going to go out and talk to these IP addresses just by opening up one file. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background that you can't see when you open a file. This is an example of that. So this will tell you, to help you make a better decision on whether it's malicious or not, but you have to ask yourself, why is it going to these domains and why is it going to these IP addresses, right? Now, this is not going to give you a total answer because if I see this, what would I do if I was in industry, in the field? I'd have to research this stuff. Are these known malicious domains? Are they known malicious IP addresses? Because guess what? It could be legitimate. My sense it's probably not legitimate, okay, because of the nature of the email that I got. Now, if the if the malware is put through a behavioral sandbox, it'll appear here, okay? So depending on, here, Zenbox here, if you see the Zenbox up here, this is a sandbox that is, if I recall, is a Windows 10 sandbox for VirusTotal. VirusTotal has different sandboxes, like it has a Windows 7 one, I think it's called JujuBox, okay? But it's doing additional testing, and what it's doing is going to tell you what the behavior is. Now this file doesn't do a really good job of getting a lot of information out there about it, but some of the other files do. But also, I'm really kind of interested in MITRE here. It's not putting here in MITRE. My next presentation, by the way, is going to be on attack frameworks in 2 weeks. Because a lot of my presentations, as I told my students, I want to teach you guys stuff that you're going to learn later in the more advanced courses. And MITRE is the most common attack framework that we do today. In other words, if you want to understand how bad guys attack you, how do they do it? How do they get in? What kind of recon do they do? What's their initial access? How do they exfiltrate data? How do they do command and control? The MITRE attack framework explains all of that. And that's another, just like VirusTotal is being implemented into other products, well, MITRE attack framework is being implemented into a lot of stuff. And now that I've said that, when you guys are reading stuff about cybersecurity, you're going to see MITRE a lot. Okay, if you see an alert from the government, they're always going to be referring to where in MITRE that that threat falls. Okay, but notice it's saying here what the HTTP request. So similar information here. And once again, what this is designed to do is give you more information to be able to make a decision. So I'd be asking also, if I run this, why is it trying to open these files? See this? I'm just opening this file. It's going to try to access these files in my Chrome. So what this is telling me that this is trying to exploit in my opinion, a Chrome vulnerability. Right? If it's trying to do stuff with Chrome, targeting Chrome, it's a Chrome vulnerability. We're going to see in one of my other uploads, which it's doing a lot of stuff with the registry. It's the Windows exploit. So I have a Mac. That's where I do most of my stuff. I was telling Hugo this morning, hey, I have no problem opening this stuff because if you look at the files, I can open it to look at it. It's not going to do any danger on my computer because I have a Mac and it's an exploit for Windows. So you can, by looking at VirusTotal, get a lot of this information. It shows that files are deleted. Look, this is also another Windows exploit. See that? Because that's registry, right? In some of the classes you learn about the Windows registry. So I'm okay opening this up on a Mac, okay? And it gives you more information on the Windows registry. So let me upload one more and then I'll open up to questions. Let me do this one, invoice. I forget which one this was. Confirm upload. This is safe. This is cool. I can open this up on my desktop, no problem. Look, nobody's detecting anything on that. What do you think, Mr. Webb? Safe. It's possible. I want to introduce you to a malware concept called a dropper. There are a lot of files that are droppers. Their purpose is to put the malware in your computer. They themselves are not malicious, so they won't be classified as malware. So what they do is they get on your computer, and once they're on your computer, then they go out and pull the malware down from whatever the source website is. Make sense? So the file itself is not malicious, because it's really not doing any damage to your computer. We call those Trojans, we call those droppers. And when I see something like this, I think it's a dropper. Okay, look, nothing is detecting it, right? Still being analyzed. Well, I don't know, the email that this was in was a little suspicious to me. So we see our hash is there. Okay, it's still processing. Okay, we'll let that do its thing. Now, while that's doing its thing, I'm gonna go to other virus, and I'm gonna do the other ones, VirusTotal again, so we can do several at one time. I think that was invoice, right? We'll do bill on this one. And then the next one, we'll do the other one I have, which is PayPal. Never trust anything from PayPal. So it's gonna be doing these analyses. Okay, that one's still going. Wow, look at this one too. Not a lot going on. It's not being tracked as anything malicious, but we'll wait till the analysis is done. And the same thing for this one. So you'll notice that they are all PDFs. Be careful with the PDF format. PDFs are commonly used to distribute malware, okay? So I'm not saying that every PDF you're gonna get is unsafe. For example, I distribute my labs in PDF, right? They're safe, okay? But you also, when you look at these files, you gotta look at the source. If it's a PDF that is coming from a source that, and some of these phishing emails look pretty good that, I don't know, you're a little suspicious about, throw it up to VirusTotal. I mean, that's the bottom. The bottom line is, anything that you consider suspicious may actually be malicious. So you gotta throw it up to VirusTotal and check it first, all right? So let's see how these guys are doing.
So how do you know if it's malicious or not? Because everything came up as undetected.
You gotta look at its behavior, like here. Like, why is this opening up this PDF? Should opening up a PDF have to communicate with the Windows registry? If I see a PDF that's trying to communicate with the registry, I'm going to automatically assume there's something malicious going on. Does that make sense? It's just you're looking for anomalous behavior. When you open up a PDF, the only thing that should happen is that PDF should be loaded into memory. Make sense? Loaded into memory, that's it. If it's reading and writing things, it's not unusual to have processes reading and writing to the registry, not unusual. And there's a tool where you can see that. Has anybody heard of Process Monitor from SysInternals? Right, we did SysInternals Process Monitor in 230, right? That tool shows you every process on the system and what it's doing with the registry. It's reading to this registry, it's editing this registry. That is normal behavior. But a PDF file really shouldn't be interacting with the registry, okay? So when I look at this, so why is it writing files? Look, and it's deleting things too. Typically something malicious is gonna try to delete things that will indicate its maliciousness, right? You know that, right? Sometimes, I took a malware analysis course once. They don't not only delete themselves, but they wipe themselves. And I downloaded this malware, and it was fun. Like, hey, I get a lot of malware in my email. Let's go try some of my malware. And I downloaded it onto the VM, and I double-clicked on it. And as soon as I double-clicked on it, it completely disappeared. Okay, and there was no sign of it anywhere. Couldn't find it. What happened? Why did it disappear? I just clicked on it. Shouldn't it just open? What was going on there?
Doesn't malware usually delete stuff to not be detected?
Well, I just opened it. There was no detection going on. It was VM. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you knew that it was in the VM.
Yeah, you got it. It was VM-aware malware, and it wiped itself. Didn't just delete itself, it wiped itself. Because very advanced, sophisticated malware knows that it's going to be analyzed. It's going to get caught, wants to be analyzed. And the author doesn't want the malware authors to look at the code of the malware and how it operates, right? Because if you know how it operates, you can create detections, you can create protections against it. So what the malware did, it detected it was in a VM. There are a couple ways that it can do that, and it completely wiped itself. And it was pretty cool to see. So yeah, so you gotta look at this stuff. You know, you're opening a file. Why is it? Look, here's dropping. It tries. Remember, I call these a dropper. This is a dropper. It's going out and trying to download other stuff that may indicate maliciousness. Like I say, if you look at the first tab, it doesn't say explicitly that this is malicious, right? But heck, you know, I mean, if you're a regular user, then you can be like, oh, I'm gonna open this, no problem. But you guys as cybersecurity professionals know that this is not enough, that you know that some files are droppers, and their job is basically just to go and bring the malware down. So the file itself won't be tagged as malicious, but its behavior will be malicious. And if you only have an antivirus that is signature-based, you'll never detect it. This here, right, and some antivirus is signature-based, some of it is what we call, uses heuristics or is behavior-based. This uses behavior. This is what's great about VirusTotal. It'll show you what its behaviors are. Look at, why is this PDF trying to resolve these domain names? I find that really interesting. Now, not all of them look malicious, but why would they do that? Now, it may be okay, but it's your opportunity. Like, look at this, it's resolving time.windows.com. Why would this malware want to know what time it is? Maybe because it only wants to run at a certain time of day? You ever think of that? You know, there's only certain malware that's designed to run when there's most likely someone not logged into the computer. Anybody know what kind of malware would do that?
Logic bulb.
Cryptocurrency malware. Today, it's cryptocurrency malware. We'll try to log in, it will try to run when no one's logged into the computer. Otherwise, it'll be detected, right? Because cryptocurrency malware uses a lot of processor, and it slows down the computer considerably. So it'll be designed to run, it's like, you know, if they'll know where their targets are, they'll target certain parts of the country, so maybe they'll run starting at 7 or 8 and run till 4 in the morning. And so they need, you know, so that won't be detected. Now the company will detect that later when they have a very large electricity bill, right? But, you know, by then it'll be too late, you know, the malware will do its job. So all of these three that I could see when I looked at them, they were all droppers. They were all PDFs, and they were all trying to do stuff on Windows. So they were hoping that the person opened it had a Windows computer. Of course, I have a Mac, so it wouldn't have done a lot of good. Okay, but guess what? About 87% of the computers out there today are Windows. 87%. Now, that number could go a couple percentage points up or down. Probably down, in my opinion. But it's still, the majority of the computers out there are going to be Windows computers. So these malware is going to target Windows computers. Not to say there aren't Linux malware, right, or Mac malware. I'm not totally confident that I'm not going to get malware, but you know, now with VirusTotal, you can be more confident, okay, when you're advising your customers, okay, when you're getting some files, you know, say you just want to know, you know, because it's really easy to tell that some emails are malicious, right? I mean, if anybody gets those emails, like this is obviously a scam, but wouldn't you like to know what that file's trying to do, right? So VirusTotal allows you to do that. So, and by the way, this is the free version. The $10,000 a year version, I see you all taking out your checkbooks because you're going to subscribe right away, offers a lot more than this, you know, with respect to how it graphs information, how it presents information. It's very, very sophisticated. I know about that because I have friends who have subscriptions, and I've seen it only through them. I have never done it myself. I have them log in and show me what it can do for $10,000. Yes?
Wait, can you use that subscription on multiple, like, for like a business?
Yeah, usually it's a
multiple
business
different
subscription, so you'll have logins, yeah. Yeah, it's usually on a, not individual, they have individual subscriptions if I recall, but in a corporate subscription, you'll get a certain number, like 20 logins, 30 logins, yeah. It's part of that. So that's all I got for you today. Any questions on VirusTotal or how you may use it? And when you're out in the field as a cybersecurity professional putting out fires and defeating malware? Yes?
Are there any other sandboxes that
Yeah, you
work
can
differently
Google.
from?
Yeah, but you know what? VirusTotal is the industry standard. There are other ones that are just not as good. I mean, nobody comes as close to it. Right? And the reason is it's Google owned or Chronicle owned. They put a lot of money and resources into developing it as a threat intelligence platform. So some of them may only do like detection based on signature instead of behavior. Notice VirusTotal does behavior. Also, MITRE, even though you can't see it in these here, they map to the MITRE attack framework. I don't know of any other sandbox that does that. So yeah, so no, this is probably the most feature-rich solution, VirusTotal. Like I said, I've actually, even though I know there are other solutions, everyone I meet uses VirusTotal. Everybody, especially in companies. Good question, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, you all get your extra credit. All right, well, I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you for coming. Although I really wish you would do better on the quizzes. So you only get credit. All right, please come in 2 weeks to do the attack frameworks, right?